race fans, welcome back to my little show about motorsports and stuff that I like to call In the Pits with me, Stock Car Scott, here on the YouTube during the racing season, when I feel like it. Well, here I am, Stock Car Scott, with a welcome to the summer episode of In the Pits. And now that the Dale Earnhardt Jr. Monte Carlo SS is out of the transmission hospital, I am back on the road again, getting out of this cesspool of a city of Detroit, far north California, every chance I can to see a night of racing. This past weekend, my wife and I went south to see super late models for a 100-lap feature at South Sound Speedway, along with Baby Grand's vintage modifieds and the tuner cars for a total of 110 laps for them of heat races and main races there. Plus there were 4-lap trophy dashes for all 4 classes. And that's where Andrew Smith, in his number 75 super late model, won his first hardware driving in the Premier Division. He is using a little extra mojo provided by Smitty's newest young fan, Caden, who was there to cheer him on to victory last Saturday evening. In the Baby Grand Division, Elijah Pennington, who I met after the race, a really nice fella, took home his first trophy in that class at South Sound Speedway. Steve Grew won the tuner car trophy dash, and Bob Fuller won the dash for vintage modifieds. The dashes were followed by 4 heat races for the 3 support divisions, and then once my hands were free from capturing video during the super late model 10-minute practice session there, I was able to finally get some supper and split a chicken tender basket with my wonderful wife. I have to again give a hearty endorsement to the South Sound Speedway's concession stand. It is one of the best parts of a bunch of great parts of going to see racing at South Sound Speedway. Their chicken tenders, we had them again this visit, are just the best I've ever had at a local racetrack. And there are only maybe a couple of regular restaurants that I've tried that have better chicken tenders. Oh, and don't worry, the chili cheese fries are also the best. Also, it is always a tough decision as I'm making my way to the counter. As I like to say about South Sound Speedway, go for the great food, stay for the great racing. After a fulfilling meal during the intermission, we settled in for main races for the 4 classes running last Saturday night. First up were the Baby Grands, where Brad Crawford dominated for the win in their 25-lap main after pole sitter Sean Jones retired early. That was followed by the tuner cars with their cones, chicanes, passing zones, and mystery lap total. Zach Dalrymple won that, what turned out to be a 23-lap contest over a 14-car field. The vintage modifieds were last before the super late model 100-lap feature with their 30-lap main, where Devin Ehrman was victorious. Just before 9 p.m., the super late model division rolled out for their big feature of the evening, with a field of 8 cars taking to the track for 100 laps of exciting racing. The small field made the race fun to watch because there were basically a few 2-car very intense races going on all the time, as opposed to a bunch of cars just wrecking into one another because there's no room for real racing. Tristan Hyder, in his second season in the Premier Division, was able to get out front early and hold off the field to win his first feature in a super late model. The battle between Tommy Elstone and Rod Schultz Sr. towards the end of the race was quite exciting. But the beating and banging between the number 75 and number 32 cars was a little unnecessary. I hope those guys learn to play a bit more nicely around each other. It would make for better racing and less post-race repairs. But that's just how I feel, and I feel that way mainly because it would make my time after the race in the pits a little less uncomfortable as I visit around the pits there between different drivers and teams. One thing I regret while wandering the pits after racing on Saturday night at South Sound Speedway was that I saw, but because my uncertainty of recognition, did not introduce myself to Jeff the Loader Eden from the Northwest Race Report that I watch every Monday night for Late Model Monday live on the Facebook about 6:30 or so. Sorry about that, Jeff. Hopefully we'll catch up with each other sometime. That was my bad. But I did talk to many racing friends like Tommy Elstone, whose shirt I finally got a chance to debut, along with Holly Marshall, who complimented me on my color coordination. I also saw the Meadors, Charles and Christina, because Christina was doing a little substitute driving in the Baby Grand division, where she did fairly well filling in for the Presley Racing team. Oh, and thank you to the guy at the end of the night that gave me a little reality check when he said to me as we passed, "Hey, StockCar Steve." It's always good to get the occasional reminder not to take myself too seriously. Thank you, unknown guy. I laughed for the rest of the night. Well, racing ended well before 10 p.m. on Saturday at South Sound Speedway, so we got home early, even with our big shopping stop at the Federal Way Walmart, where I snagged a few more of the Daytona 500 edition NASCAR Authentics diecast to add to the ever-growing 1/64 scale collection. While on local racing, I did go to Evergreen Speedway in the rental car a couple of weekends ago, as you can tell from the wet track racing video posted on my YouTube channel of Hornets, mini stocks, street stocks, and stock figure eights. But the evening was a disappointment for me because the rain never abated enough to get the 3/8 oval dry enough for the super late models to race. Oh well. This weekend, Evergreen Speedway has the big 4-cylinder Western Roundup with 6 classes, including mini stocks, Pro 4 late models, Pro 4 trucks, Hornets, Stinger 8s, and the front wheel drive Nationals. Sounds like a fun night of 4-cylinder racing, but unfortunately, I have something else I must do. But I won't be missing the following weekend at Evergreen Speedway because it is the big Summer Showdown 2 days of racing weekend. It is my understanding that there are over 40 super late models signed up for the annual 200 lap race on the big 5/8 mile track. They'll also have mini stocks, street stocks, and legends on the 3/8 on the schedule for the Summer Showdown weekend. So if you like your late models, super late models, you really should go. But if you prefer Hornets, Bumblebees, or tuner cars, or whatever you like to call them now, you should spend that Saturday night, the 30th of this month, at South Sound Speedway for their huge 150 lap race till you drop tuner car race there, along with the full impact demolition derby, if you like that sort of thing. And then this weekend at South Sound, they've got late models, legends, hobby stocks, and mini stocks. So a few of the drivers there have to decide where they want to race this weekend between South Sound and the Western Roundup up at Evergreen. But as I said, I had something else planned for me this coming Saturday, so I'll just be watching racing on TV with the Camping World trucks at Gateway, Illinois, the Monster Energy Cup guys on the road course at Sonoma, California. The F1 race is at the French Grand Prix at La Castellet in the Circuit Paul Richard. There you go, Circuit Paul Richard. Oh, and there is also an ARCA race Friday evening at Gateway, but the live broadcast is on that Phantom Sports 2 channel. Luckily, the first rebroadcast is also Friday night later on the Fox Sports 1 channel, so I won't have to miss it. Who saw the rain-shortened races at Michigan a couple weeks ago there? Wasn't that fun seeing Clint Boyer win again this season? Yeah, Clint might not be the driver I end up picking as my favorite, but I sure don't mind too much when he wins. He is one of those drivers that it is almost impossible to dislike. Yeah, he's a character, but in a good way. I just wish he was still in a Chevy. The Michigan Xfinity race was also rain-shortened, but was won by Austin Dillon, a favorite Cup driver of mine. The week before, the Toad, Kyle Busch, won the Xfinity race at Pocono in a cheated-up Joe Gibbs Racing Camry. I don't know about y'all folks, but I think if a Cup driver wins an Xfinity race in a cheated-up car, the Cup driver should not get the win credit for that race. If an Xfinity car is cheated up for a Cup driver, then it should be as if that driver and car were never even seen at the race. You know, they not only should the driver already doesn't get points, but neither should the owner either. 0 if they cheat. Then other participants would move up, receiving the win, points, and payout left by the vacant victory there. And this is because fines and point deductions mean little nothing to non-Xfinity drivers when the victory still remains in the record books as belonging to that offending driver. You know, what good is that? Oh, there wasn't a chance of that, though, this past weekend with both the Camping World Truck Series and the Xfinity Series racing at the 7/8 mile short track Palace at Newton, Iowa. Local Brent Moffitt won his second truck race this season on Saturday, though when Noah Gragson drove way too deep in on the last lap trying to steal that win away, it made for quite the exciting finish. Four-time winner this season, Johnny Sauter, still leads the driver points with Cragson and Moffitt in second and third with their next race next Saturday at Gateway. In the Xfinity race at Iowa on Father's Day, Junior Motorsports driver and all-around good guy Justin Allgaier won the race, which will be his first this season that will count towards an automatic playoff spot, as his win earlier at Dover is encumbered. But who cares? Allgaier is now in the playoffs and sixth in points, while his Junior Motorsports teammate Elliott Sadler is leading the driver points as they take this weekend off before joining the rest of NASCAR and ARCA for a long weekend of racing at Chicagoland the weekend before Independence Day. And speaking of Independence Day, the smartest race date of the season comes the night before at South Sound Speedway, when they hold the annual super late model West Roads Firecracker 126 on the evening of the 3rd of July, along with a pretty nice fireworks display at the end of the night after racing is over. Then you can sleep in on the 4th and then maybe catch another fireworks display or a demolition derby or something like that someplace else if that's your thing. But no matter what you do celebrating our country's 242 years of independence, have a safe and happy day of freedom, because it is much more than just the 4th of July. Please be safe. Again, I want you to be around when I get the itch to do another show here. But before I end this show, though, I do want to touch base with my favorite late model touring series in the Northwest, the West Coast Late Model Series. Garrett Huffhines garnered his second win of the season at Hermiston Raceway in Oregon this past Saturday. You know, I'm really disappointed that I haven't gotten to see these guys race this year, but they now have 3 dates at Yakima Speedway besides the revival of the Fall Classic, starting with 100 laps at the historic Mid-Washington Half Mile on the 7th of July. I'm hoping I get to attend that one or one of the other races there for the West Coast Late Model Series. But before that happens, I have a lot of super late model racing to watch on this side of the state, with the Summer Showdown on the big 5/8 mile track at Evergreen Speedway at the end of the month, and the West Roads Firecracker 126 at South Sound Speedway, with fireworks the night before we celebrate the greatest country on Earth's 242nd birthday. Hopefully there will be many, many more long after we are gone because of those who came before us. So exercise your freedom during this first part of the summer of 2018 and go out with your family and friends and see some racing. There's lots to see with big purse super late model racing and demolition derbies and 4-cylinder roundups and super late model racing with fireworks and tuner car run till they break racing and bunches of other types of racing, because there's something out there for everyone. You know, all races matter. So, get out there and see some good racing while we are getting a stretch of really, really nice weather here. We may not get the cooperation up here in the Northwest with the weather throughout the whole summer, y'all, so you need to take advantage of it. But one of the things I do not suggest you do, no matter how free you may feel this summer, no matter how good the weather is this summer, I do not suggest that you come to Detroit for North California. This place is now dangerous for those who live here, as well as people that visit. And the last thing I wish to hear about on the Dory Munson Show on Cairo Radio is that one of my racing friends was robbed, hurt, or worse by one of the thousands of drug-addicted criminal vagrants invited to Detroit by the people elected to run this cesspool of a city. They've done this by creating a problem that ensures they think that they will be reelected by a frightened constituency. Well, they may think that, but until the people that are now turning this city into an open human garbage pit are voted out of office, and people that are willing to use the laws on the books and tax revenue now available to solve the vagrancy crisis are voted into office, the problem will only get worse because that way the corrupt Detroit city officials can keep those positions of power and dole out six-figure income job appointments to their families and lackeys. Oh, silly me. I grew up thinking that Alabama, I grew up thinking that Alabama had the most corrupt politician, but George Corley Wallace ain't got nothing on Mayor Jenny Ann Durkin. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Mayor Durkin standing in a schoolhouse door next to the latest city low barrier encampment saying, "Homelessness today, homelessness tomorrow, homelessness forever." Well, at least Governor George Wallace became repentant in his old age. Maybe something will happen in their lives of these idiots ruining this once charming port city that will motivate repentance in them. Nah. They just need to be voted out. But one of the many problems here with the system such as it is that true alternatives to established politicians are weeded out in the general election. That comes first instead of primaries, instead of party having primaries there. Then they have a runoff election that they refer to as the general election. By that time, the voter is only left with two candidates that are not alternatives to anything, much less each other. And the saying here is that they have elections in Detroit until the choice is between a communist and a socialist. And that would be funny if it wasn't so true. Okay, that's enough. That's enough of the stuff part of my little show about motorsports and stuff that I like to call In the Pits with me, StockCar Scott, here on the YouTube during racing season, you know, when I feel like it. Thank you, race fans, for tuning in for yet another episode. I hope you were entertained, but either way, you know, it's about 23 minutes that you ain't never getting back. TTFN.